Joining me today with Sietske is Menno Holterman. He's founder and chairman of Nijhuis Holding, CEO of Nijhuis Industries, and a board member of the Netherlands Water Partnership. Welcome, Menno. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Paddy.
That was a very brief introduction. I'd be interested if you could sort of introduce yourself to our community in a little bit more detail.
And where to start? Since I have left university, I've been working around the world, predominantly serving, start of my career, the food and beverage industry. And I also became actively engaged in the global water and wastewater industry. I had the privilege of working in many places around the world and doing business in more than 180 countries. I've been living in different countries, from Eastern Europe all the way to Papua New Guinea, which also brought some interesting experience in life. And I've seen with my own eyes, of course, that water is the most essential in life, but also at the same time, it is a very important license to operate for our industrial clients. It's unequally distributed around the world. Despite all the extensive efforts over the last decades, still a lot of people lack access to clean water sanitation. And that is where we today and over the last 10 years, together with our investment company, with Nijhuis Industries, are trying to make the difference and helping our clients to basically adapt to the new reality and to the very dynamic circumstances in the world. If you look, for example, at the impact of climate change, that's huge. And it's also it's coming closer and closer also, let's say, to the not only the emerging countries or the developing countries. Even in a country like the Netherlands at the moment, drought is a very big topic. Our headquarters is located on the eastern part of the country, which is at the moment the center of the driest area in the Netherlands. So even a country in the Netherlands, which is known for their advanced water management, need to completely change the system in order to deal with the climate change and with the biodiversity and with water scarcity, and instead of discharging all the water as fast as possible to the sea, like the Dutch are used to, we're now trying to keep every drop of water in the country and in the in the ecosystem. So there's a lot of changes ongoing, and this is where we try to spend our time and dedication to.
Very, very interesting. And water scarcity in a country like the Netherlands is very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, water scarcity is, of course, known to people around the equator, Africa, countries which are facing already for a longer time the negative impact of water scarcity. But I can take you, I invite you to join us to Poland, for example, where our company just successfully commissioned the largest water reuse factory for the largest slaughterhouse in Europe. And that slaughterhouse can simply not operate any longer without reusing the wastewater, which normally is discharged to a nearby river after it's being treated. And now it's basically from treated effluent. We are turning it now into drinking water, meeting the tightest regulations in Poland, and using it in the operation. And without that water, they simply have to reduce their production capacity. And we see more and more of these developments. So not only far away in emerging countries, but also quite near to the Netherlands, where our headquarters is located.
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, well, I think what's quite interesting is, if you look at your career and the things that you've done, a lot of it has been based around innovation. If you could talk about innovation in general? People look at larger companies, and you run large companies, and you have investments in other companies, but is it easy? How do you make sure that innovation is a thing within a large company as opposed to just business as normal? You know, innovation is quite difficult, people say, to thrive in a large business environment. How do you maintain that in your businesses?
It's a very interesting question. And innovation indeed has been, in more than 20 years in my career, playing a very, very important role. And I always have used innovation as a way to differentiate from our competitors. And of course, there are different definitions about innovation, but for us, it is very important that we are successfully commercializing innovations, because I believe that's the one and only way to also basically create the funding to invest also in the future in doing better. Innovation comes with understanding what the client's requirements are. And that's not always very easy, because in an environment like ours, which is very often, or which is very driven by technical people very much like to share what they think is the best for you, Paddy, and for your NLIT participants. But to really understand what keeps the client awake is very often something different. So we have spent a lot of time in understanding, and do spend a lot of time in understanding what are the real concerns of clients, and understanding the cause of the problems and the challenges they are facing. We are, of course, living in a time where environmental legislation is playing a very important role. And at the same time, we know that productivity, environmental footprint, life cycle cost, investment cost are equally important. So what we always have tried to do is try to develop, let's say, a business case for the client. And also in order to attract the higher level management interest. Because at the end of the day, it's the CEO or the CFO who has to sign off the investment. And that process is crucially important. Understanding what are the real needs, transforming them into a business case for the client, and then coming up with something which really makes the difference. And I think I feel blessed and privileged that with the teams I have been leading in the past and also today, we are able to make that difference. And it's a long, and it takes a long time. We have in the Netherlands, for example, we have extensively researched how much time it takes in the water space from the initial eureka moment. Wow, I think I have something in my mind, to start commercialization. That is an average of 10 to 15 years. And then to take that idea after your first 1-2 launching customers and really bring it to the global market takes very often at least another 10 years. So if you take that perspective and you present it to an investor and say, listen, I have a fantastic idea, but it will take 25 years to really bring it to the global market and get a 30% market share, like we do in some of the applications we own and we innovated. That's a very it's very difficult to sell that story.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But that's reality. That's a reality for a lot of the highly innovative companies. It's a reality for startups at the moment. That's why startups are in a very difficult situation, especially in the water industry. And the water industry is known for being conservative. It's not a word I like to use. But if you talk about obtaining approval for drinking water, you're talking about death or life. So you have to take things seriously. You have to get your permits. You have to get your certificates. You have to get your approvals. And there's a lot of different technologies out in the market. So we're also not making it easy for our clients, because they can choose from a big variety of different technology offerings. I think that is also how the water sector differentiates from the energy sector. That there are so many different technologies, many more compared to the energy sector, for example. And to find your way in that dynamic landscape is not easy. And at the same time, to also do it in a way where you're not depending too much on, in the early stage of a startup, family, friends, and fools, but really develop it in a way that the innovation itself can sustain and can pay for itself. That is, I think, one of the biggest challenges we are facing in our industry. And that's also why we decided to combine the very respected and use the references and experience of a very respected company of Nijhuis, which is, we just celebrated our 116th birthday, and combine that with innovation, because the bread and butter business of Nijhuis is helping us to introduce the more innovative solutions. And at the same time, in order to differentiate from our competitors, we are introducing year after year after year new innovations. Simply because what is good today is probably not good anymore tomorrow, or not sufficient tomorrow. So
and we don't know what the future holds, right? And something can come along and turn the whole world upside down, or send everybody home. Well, it's nice that you already shared a little bit more about your passion for the next gen of technologies, and how that's working within your own company. You were mentioning as well, and bringing it up, that startups might be facing a difficult time. So I was wondering as well, with the current situation, whether COVID-19 has impacted your business, your day-to-day business.
To be fairly honest, we see some delays in decisions, but we are very blessed that more than 80% of our clients are industrial end users. In the food, the beverage, the dairy industry, personal care, pharmaceutical. These clients around the world, most of them are really facing a boost at this moment of time. The fact that people are consuming now at home is having on a lot of these clients a positive impact. Probably it will be a short-term positive impact. So we also have to look at the longer term, but we see at this moment of time that a lot of opportunities around the world. As I said earlier in the introduction, we also see that there are risks, new risks, like the Legionella risk at the moment, which is playing a serious role. We have some companies in our group which are advanced in cooling water and Legionella-free water systems. And they are at the moment working around the clock to make sure that systems which have been shut down are now coming back in hospitals, in musea, in big shopping malls, without, let's say, a growing Legionella and exposing the users to any of the risks. So far, we have been blessed, and we have been safe. We are still ahead of our last year performance, which was our best year ever. And we try to keep it like that. Of course, we have to face reality, and I'm expecting that the water shortages around the world and the impact of climate change is not something which will change. However, it will have impact on the decision of clients, and it might also have impact on the budgets which will be made available. So for us, we already were in the process of not only developing business cases around the lowest life cycle cost or the lowest operational cost. I think this crisis will also challenge us to even lower or come up with smarter designs to also have a positive impact on lowering the required investment for a lot of our clients. So I think the dynamic times, it will continue like that. We are benefiting from the fact that we are a global operating company, and we see already signs of recovery, despite the fact that, for example, the lockdown in Singapore after the second wave has affected some of our, let's say, commercial activities. At the same time, we are receiving at the moment from a lot of areas around the world serious inquiries of clients which are looking for ways to operate even more advanced. And I think that's also of interest in, especially for your for the ended community. Energy is is becoming a scarce commodity in a lot of places, and especially in the emerging markets, you see that if people have a lack of access to water and sanitation, it very often is combined with a lack of access to energy. So here we see opportunities to introduce successful innovations to clients in order to reduce energy consumption. We have in our entire R&D program, we have the ambition to lower 50% of our current energy consumption.
Okay.
And we have recently introduced a new technology in the desalination market, which is now being successfully used for the largest desalination plant in Singapore, where we have guaranteed our clients 50% less footprint and 35% less energy consumption compared to any of our peers. Now, as long as we keep doing that, there's a market for us. We are replacing the use of chemicals, for example, in the water treatment business is very important. And we are dramatically reducing the use of chemistry by using smart sensors, which we have developed ourselves, or by replacing, for example, traditional chemicals by electrocoagulation, which only makes sense if you have the guarantee of sufficient energy supply to basically develop your own chemicals in line. We recently also have commissioned now the 4th slaughterhouse in the world, where we are converting from the oil, grease and fat from the slaughtering process, which is all collected in the wastewater. We're converting that into biofuel and making that slaughterhouse energy self-sufficient. All these kind of developments are helping us to stay ahead of many of our competitors, and are keeping us in business. And yeah, we are continuously looking, not only me, but our team is continuously looking around the world for these kind of opportunities.
It's quite interesting. Obviously, a focus on contact with clients to develop technology that fits. In some instances, some people are busy trying to develop technologies that they hope will fit. So I think there's a clear message that comes.
Technology push versus market pull.
Yeah.
That is, I think, the
term.
biggest challenge. Yeah. And one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Nijhuis Industries, what I love about this is you're a company with purpose. Reduce, reuse, and recover. Purpose is one thing, and certainly when there's a lot of technology and engineering, how does purpose live within your employees? How do they bring that to work?
Now, I think there's that's not a nice question, because I think there's a whole new generation of people who only get to work because they feel that they can contribute to something meaningful.
That's the thing.
I think 10 years ago, it was quite difficult to recruit people to work in the water technology space, because people prefer to work on creating big islands in the Middle East, or big infrastructure works, instead of looking through a microscope to see if bugs are converting waste into energy. And we now see that change. Combined with the fact that Nijhuis now is, I think, becoming more known and appreciated for what we are doing. We see here, even in our headquarters. When I started 7 years ago, we had 2 nationalities at headquarters. And at the moment now, we have 24 different nationalities working here in the office. I'm not talking about our global operations and the other 11 operations we have around the world, but I'm just talking about the team which is working here in the office. So I think there is a very positive development where we as a sector can now tap into a new generation of people who really want to make the difference. And we should benefit from that. On the other side, I think if I compare, and if I take the liberty to compare the energy sector with the water sector, for example, I believe already for decades that the energy sector is much more advanced compared to the water sector. And we should learn from that. And I think water and energy together belong to each other. And it has been separate. Even here in the Netherlands, you see that different utility companies are operating separate from each other. Where if you look in a household, whether you get a pipe with water in your house or electricity or gas, there's a lot in common. So there's a lot more we could do by working closer together and learning from each other. And I really believe that the water sector, of course, we have a lot to offer. But if we really want to meet all the SDG goals in 2030, and if we really want to make sure that we help all our existing industrial clients, but even more that the global population has access to water and sanitation, then we also need to work collectively stronger together. And there, water and energy need each other. If you look at, for example, decentralized use of energy, I think the energy sector is much more advanced compared to the water sector. And here I see now new projects coming up. We are working at the moment on several projects where solar PV, large-scale solar PV, is smartly combined with water and wastewater treatment. And then you offer a multi-utility solution to clients off-grid. And if the energy sector now is trying to influence the regulations and make it more favorable for decentralized solutions, there I think your community and our community should work hand by hand together, because we are trying to achieve the same objectives here.
Yeah. Maybe, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, I think what you're saying is already bringing out an opportunity, actually, that should come out of the situation that we're now in, because I think water and energy are critical in order to have a healthcare facility, right? So with that, that is becoming more apparent now as well. I think there's in general a lot more awareness on how vulnerable we are as people, and what it is that we actually need in order to survive. Energy, water is essential. So what would you think, maybe an overused quote from Winston Churchill, but never waste a good crisis. What opportunities do you see besides this coming out of the crisis?
How much time do we have?
Valid point.
I think we need to be very careful, I think, here, because at one hand we should not neglect the extreme impact of unemployment of this crisis. At the same time, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to basically put some of the ambitions, which, for example, were related to the Paris Agreement or to the Sustainability Development Goals, to really now put them in practice, and to basically accelerate some of the transformations which are required in some of the water, energy, and waste infrastructure. I also believe that waste should be taken into account, because waste could be a very valuable resource for energy. And I think water, energy, and waste are very much interlinked to each other. But if you talk about, I think, sustainability, it probably will be replaced more by resilience. And that also has been one of our focus areas over the last couple of years. Solid and adaptive solutions for a sustainable and resilient future. And I think that is where we should look together. And there our mantra of reuse or reduce, reuse, and recover is playing an important role. But the adaptiveness, I think, is very important. This whole COVID-19, of course, is an interesting exercise to see how the world is adapting to an unforeseen outbreak or virus outbreak, although many people already warned for it. And then you still see, of course, that warning is not enough. And the same we have seen now also in the water sector worldwide. I've been the last 15, 20 years attending many or almost every conference where people, including myself, have been warning each other, be careful, etc. And yeah, very often you first need to have a crisis before you can make the transformative changes into the ecosystem. Look in the Netherlands to the water crisis in 1953, which ultimately helped us, despite the of course the loss of people, lives, and the economical impact, the financial impact. Ultimately, it has brought us a lot. At the same time, we need to enhance on that. So I think we are living in an environment where, in the future, our sector, a company like Nijhuis Industries, we have to deliver water on demand. We can't afford to bring, let's say, drinking water quality to every single client around the world. We need to deliver the water which is necessary to feed cattle or to grow food, irrigation water, and that is of different quality than you want to consume as human being. Or even elderly people in the future need to have calcium enriched water to help their bones, or add more vitamins to the water. So now one of our objectives in this crisis, and which is also part of our strategy, is to deliver what I call water on demand. And that there also fits the decentralized approach, which I was referring to earlier. And I think that is going to be, for our sector, crucial. At the same time, it will be absolutely crucial that sectors which normally are not working very often together and which are working in silos, that we are breaking through those silos and that we integrate really, for example, water and energy, or water waste and energy, into affordable solutions. And we see worldwide, and that will probably be even, that will for sure be worth that, where governments should increase their investment in infrastructure, we probably will see a decline. We already are facing a decline. If you look to the global population and you compare that with the investments of governments around the globe, you see that there is a big mismatch. And that for the commercial sector brings opportunities. We have been actively engaging ourselves the last 5 years in design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. So new also here, innovation, not only in technology, but also innovation in new business models, in order to offer our clients water as a service instead of all kind of different technologies and components and systems and whatever. Now integrate it into a solution and offer the client the water they need in the right quality, in the right volume, and be flexible. A lot of our industrial clients today, they said, listen, we have a very successful product, but we don't know 3 years from now whether we are still on the same peak capacity. We are designing today systems in a much different way than we did over the last decades, in order to be more flexible and offer the client more flexibility than designing for a peak capacity, which probably will never come. Yeah. So I think, it's probably a long answer to a short question.
No, but it's very interesting. Very interesting. And I think I love the idea of water on demand. Absolutely brilliant. You know, the amount of water, the energy that is wasted cleaning water to take it to a certain level to flush it down a toilet is ridiculous. So I love that concept. Menno, I appreciate
unsustained for the future. Unsustainable.
No, unsustainable. I appreciate you've given us this time. We have one more question, which is it's a sort of the $1 million question, and I think there's in startups would be very interested in this. But what advice would you give startups at this current stage with the COVID-19 situation? What advice would you give them?
I think we already have addressed number one. Please understand the real demands of your client. This technology push, market pull. I think there is too much innovation just coming up out of course, great ideas with a lot of sympathy. But if you can't find a client to buy for it and to really use it, then it's not worthwhile to invest in that innovation. Yeah. So that is absolutely number one. And that will become even more important because there will be less money available to invest in startup companies. We, however, also have. I think there is an equally important group, what we call potential scale-ups. And I think there is not sufficient attention to potential scale-ups in this industry. And this is where we have been looking the last couple of years to make the difference. We also have set up our own accelerator program for promising scale-ups. Companies which are already out of, let's say, the first initial growth dip. It traditionally comes first with a big dip of investment. And what we are trying to do is help them basically pass through the break-even line by benefiting from our global presence, by using our 430 colleagues around the world, by providing them access to our existing references. We have 2,600 references around the world. By tapping them into our R&D team, our engineering team, our project managers, our service team, we have a data mining team, monitoring, etc. Our manufacturing capability. I think a lot of the potential startups, the successful startups, they have a great idea, but are basically losing time by either not selecting the right launching customer, because I believe that a launching customer can make or break you, and by not surrounding them with the right support to help them. It doesn't matter that sometimes you have to go through the development stage yourself, and sometimes you have to learn the hard way. But I see a lot of startups which are losing so much time because they have not listened carefully to the client, and they are they're living in a kind of an orange bubble till the reality tells them that either there's not sufficient money to support their development, or that basically the initial idea should be completely changed to something what clients are really waiting for. So I would not only like to pay attention to startups, because you first need a startup to scale up, but we should pay equally attention to startups and potential scale-ups to help them basically survive, and also bring those brilliant ideas into the daily lives of our clients.
Sound advice. Menno, thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Very thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And we'll let you get on to your next call. But thanks again. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Menno.
Take care.